A rather significant sell-off on this Monday. Now, so much of it having to do with trade. As soon as President Trump fired that first missile in the tariffs war, specifically 20% on foreign steel, 10% on foreign aluminum, countries rushed to file formal complaints with the World Trade Organization, the WTO. China and the European Union are among those not only protesting President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs, but now demanding official WTO intervention. But does the WTO have teeth anymore when it comes to resolving these burgeoning trade battles? Former Florida Congressman James Bacchus is a founding member and former chairman of the WTO Appellate body and has judged more international trade disputes than anyone on the planet. Congressman, perfect person to talk to today, notwithstanding the situation at this hour involving pending investment restrictions on Chinese investment in U.S. tech. If you were still the decider at the WTO, how might you have ruled on the steel and aluminum tariff dispute right now?
The United States is bound to lose all the cases that are being brought against it by other countries arising from the steel and aluminum tariffs. The only issue is whether the United States can successfully claim a national security exception, and I believe the United States is not going to succeed in that effort. Everything the United States has done and every way in which they've done it suggests that those tariffs have not been imposed for national security reasons, but purely for economic reasons to encourage other countries to do as Donald Trump wishes.
Well, the claim of we got to do this because it's necessary for national security is allowed under the WTO rules, but it's supposed to be used sparingly. And a lot of people were having trouble understanding why importing Mercedes had anything to do with national security. But I do have to ask you, does the WTO, forget having teeth, does it have legitimacy right now? Because when you look at past rulings, it almost seems like they are U.S. phobic, the anti-U.S., because whether it was President Obama or President Herbert Walker Bush or W. Bush, they always seem to be ruling against the United States in what appear to many people to be legitimate trade complaints against countries like China or Vietnam or Colombia.
Well, I think you have some alternative facts there. The United States has won the vast majority of the cases that it is brought against other countries in the WTO. I think the number is somewhere between 80 and 90%, and that's continued in recent years. The United States has lost a series of cases brought against the United States on trade remedies actions by the United States, anti-dumping, countervailing duties to subsidies, and that's largely because the United States has not complied with the WTO rules on trade remedies that the United States negotiated and to which it agreed back with the establishment of the 1995 treaty that created the WTO.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I want to thank you for clarifying that. I actually had research that only really gave me situations from 2011, 2014, 2015 that looked like they were ruling against the U.S. I don't come into these interviews with an agenda. I really don't. But I would say that...
I understand that.
Well, when you use the term alternative facts, I'm like, you just dissed me. But you know what? We want to educate our viewers. It's not about anybody's ego here, anything. I really don't care. I just really want our viewers to understand why the market is reacting the way it is. And then you turn to what China has said, and China is very concerned. In fact, I don't really understand why we should care about whether China's concerned, because they've been a member of the WTO for 10 years. And back when they joined, they were a struggling and newer economy. They're not anymore, Congressman, are they? I mean, they are up to speed. They're the world's second largest economy, and they do steal some intellectual property. There have been cases, and I used Manitowoc out of Wisconsin, the crane maker, where they flat out stole Manitowoc's technology and then banned them and slapped tariffs on their cranes that were coming into China.
Well, I think I may have some credibility here because as a lawyer, since I ceased being a judge, I brought and won two WTO cases against China, and China has complied with those rulings. I believe that's two more cases than President Trump has won so far. There are real legal issues with China under the WTO treaty. But where we have brought cases against China and where we have won them, and we have won almost all our cases against China, and we have several more pending that we should win, China has generally complied with the rulings against China. What we need to be doing is working with the rules instead of working illegally outside of the rules. Protectionism never works for very long, and that's what we're seeing now with these unilateral tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. If these illegal taxes on trade, because that's what they are, continue, then American producers and consumers are going to pay higher prices. And American business will be priced out of the world marketplace. American jobs will be lost, and we will see a decline in American competitiveness, innovation, and growth.
Well, there are some who perceive that we've already seen that, and that this is some type of reaction, and we're waiting to see how it all ends. But you do have a book coming out called The Willing World: Shaping and Sharing a Sustainable Global Prosperity. Those are really optimistic words, prosperity. What's the one thing we need to get back to, and not just we, U.S., but the collective we?
Well, in the United States, we need to learn the lesson of the past century and more, which is no country has ever grown and continued to grow over time, and China needs to hear that part, without being open to the wider world economy. And the second element we need to remember is that in being open, we also have to do all we must do domestically to make certain that we empower our people and enable them to succeed economically. The right type of atmosphere for the market, the right type of training and education, the right type of basic support for people so that they can share in the prosperity of the world economy. Far too few Americans have shared in our prosperity over the past generation.